Hey everybody, we're here at Red Rocks Racing Sportsbook for the Sports Betting Podcast Bookends, powered by STN Sports as always. He's Jason, I'm Chucky. Before we break down everything that happened in football last week and what's coming up this week, we got to talk a little bit about the Fall Classic. Baseball. No surprise that the LA Dodgers are there. Although at one point in October they were 9-2 at their highest. But we're talking about the Toronto Blue Jays, a team that in early May, Jay, was 75-1. Yet they still came away with the best record in the American League, the best home record in baseball, and they're hosting Game 1, yet they're a dog in the series. They're a dog in Game 1 to the Dodgers, but they're a fun team to watch. Can they compete with the defending champion LA Dodgers?
Well, I'll start with the Dodgers. This was a team, as we sat down at the beginning of the season, that we thought had a chance to go win, a record 125 games and be one of the best teams of all time. Obviously, they didn't do that. And the reason they didn't do that was that the starting pitching, the health of the starting pitching, obviously wasn't there. We thought they had one of the best bullpens that you could ever put together at the beginning of the season, too, with all these guys that they acquired.
Right.
And then that ended up, as we kind of hit the back half of the season here, being one of the weaknesses of the team, of not having the incredible strength of that bullpen. But they've had a dominant post-series run. Their pitching has been absolutely fantastic. We saw Shohei have one of, if not the greatest game of all time, with a 6-inning, 10K, 3-home run performance. The lineup is stacked with veterans. They've been there before, going up against a Toronto team that hasn't been there since Joe Carter was jumping up and down.
Over 30 years, yep.
And so there is some intrigue here with the dog. Obviously, the way Vladimir Guerrero's been swinging the bat. George Springer, obviously, nobody's had more clutch at bats and big home
runs. George
runs
Springer.
To get there, coming off a win in Game 7. You talked about the home field advantage that they have, but again, question marks in the starting pitching. It's Gausman, the young man Savage, who made 3 starts this year before becoming a huge winner in the postseason. But again, for me...
And maybe Bo Bichette back.
Yeah, Bo Bichette, again, hasn't played, I think, since September 6th, were his last at-bats. So what kind of rust can he shake off? Can he add quality at-bats? The Blue Jays have a bunch of these guys, from Jimenez to Kirk, to Clement, to Barger, that can put together big at-bats. But they're going to depend on the big guys. Is Guerrero even going to get pitched to, or are they going to go around him? I don't think they go around him because these guys have been so very, very good. I'll start with Blake Snell, who's been absolutely amazing. I think he's pitched 21 innings so far in the postseason. He's allowed 7 hits, 2 earned runs, 28 Ks, walking through the Reds, walk through the Phillies, walk through the Brewers. He's been absolutely unbelievable. Yamamoto's put up 2 wins. Glasnow's made 2 great starts against the Brewers and Phillies. Then you add in Ohtani. So from a game 1 through 4 starting pitcher standpoint, I give the Dodgers the edge all 4 games.
Don't you, too, with the fact that the series doesn't start till Friday, it really gave them the opportunity to kind of set their rotation. Get the guys plenty of rest.
I don't even think it needs
set their rotation.
They need to set the rotation. I mean, they've just been dominant. If anything, it's given.
At this time of year, I think pitchers, they still get that rest. That you really can set your rotation the way you want it, and they've been so dominant. I think it really favors them in that regard, and the bettors are showing that by the price continuing to go up on the series.
Yeah, and you talk about that strength of starting pitching. You then go into the lineup and talk about guys. Yes, we know what Ohtani can do. He hasn't been awesome throughout the playoffs. We've seen some games of emptiness, but there's always that chance of the explosion of the game. Then you add on veteran guys like Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman and Teoscar Hernandez and Muncy and Will Smith. I mean, this is a laundry list of guys that have had success in the postseason, let alone a Freddie Freeman, who's Canadian and now gets to go play a World Series in Canada. He's played for the Canadian national team in the World Baseball Classic. So again, what are those fans in Toronto? Are you going to be cheering against your own Canadian guy and Freddie Freeman?
They will be.
In his home country.
They will be.
Yeah. I just think everything the Dodgers have going for them, this run that they've been able to put through the playoffs was exactly what we were expecting to see from this Dodgers team when we threw the first pitch of the 2025 regular season, and now we're seeing it into the postseason, and that's why you see them such a big favorite, even on the road. And yes, I want to see the Blue Jays play competitive baseball here, and I want to see this series go to a 6 or 7 games so that we have something to cheer for. But I think we are seeing a historic baseball team in the Los Angeles Dodgers. From, again, the rotation standpoint, that lineup, we thought this is what we were going to see all series long, and now we're getting to see exactly what we got to see in this postseason.
All season long, I think that's what we expected. I think you look at the Blue Jays and maybe a little bit of the forgotten team. Going into the postseason, the team that we were the best as far as a liability standpoint, we were in great shape with the Blue Jays. Even as high as 75-1 in early May, they just weren't bet by you guys. Yet they had the best record again in the American League, the best home record in baseball. So maybe you can really relish that role a bit, as we are really underdogs. Even though we had the best record at home, the best record in the American League, we weren't a team that anybody was talking about. Who's going to be the American League team? It wasn't about the Toronto Blue Jays. So maybe they take that underdog role and kind of run with it a bit. Still a tough place to play, as we've seen with their record, but this Dodger team, everything kind of unfolded right. You always want a team in all sports, and we talk about it. You want to be playing really well, you want to have that swagger, and you want to have gotten healthy at the right time. And all those things happen in the Dodgers leading up to the postseason.
Yeah, and I think you go back talking about the Blue Jays and why they weren't there. And again, we're talking about a team that has home field advantage over the Dodgers,
right.
Hosting the World
Only
Series.
Only one more win, but
they were able to get those wins throughout the regular season. But again, it wasn't due to that fear in that starting pitching rotation. Obviously, they had Berrios, who's not available here in the postseason, but Gausman's that number one starter. When we looked at the Yankees and you had Fried and Rondon and the starting rotation there, when you looked at this Mariner team and you looked at their starting rotation, even
very
when
good,
you went deeper into the Tigers with Skubal, everybody else had a better starting rotation, and that's why the Blue Jays kind of weren't that feared. And one of the big guys for me in this series, looking at Louis Varland, who they got from the Minnesota Twins, he's that kind of key reliever that's got to hold things together in those middle innings. Kind of one of the weaker points of the lineup or rotation for the Blue Jays is looking at that middle relief.
Right.
So I think Varland, who made a bunch of appearances against Seattle, is going to be another key guy. Can he bridge the gap from that starters to getting to Hoffman and getting those guys that are later in the bullpen? But look for Louis Varland, the right-handed middle relief guy for Toronto, to be a big part of this series. If he's able to have, again, maybe 3 or 4 appearances and hold them down in a 6th or 7th inning, maybe that can give the Blue Jays a chance to steal some games.
And I know we talk about it all the time about getting signed up for STN Sports, but with Game 1 Friday, check out the app or get signed up if you're not on it yet. There are going to be so many props and so many different ways to bet the series, especially with these potent offensive players and the pitchers. It's a lot of fun to kind of look at the stuff throughout the course of the game.
And match of the day, 10% bonus, Game 1 on Friday. That'll be our match of the day on Friday, so take advantage of that 10% bonus on World Series Game 1.
Not only that, but you've been adding multiple matches of the day throughout the course of the weekend and big days, so it's not isolated to just one game. In many cases, there's 2 or 3 games that are match of the day.
Yeah, we put together a big bonus week this week with 2 match of the days. Obviously very, very excited about the NBA tipping off, and so 2 match of the days set up for the rest of the week. So Friday you'll see the World Series with an NBA game behind it. Saturday we're going to have Ole Miss, Oklahoma, followed by LSU and Texas A&M as the match of the day. And again, you'll see that on Sunday as well with a morning game. I believe it's the Niners and Texans, followed by that Packers Steelers game to go at night. So lots of 10% bonuses. If you're not taking advantage of these 10% bonus, if you're not on the app,
shame on
get the
you.
app, get the $50 no worry wager, get the app, get a 10% bonus, multiple matches of the day this week. And again, as we move forward, that match of the day, that 10% bonus, at least one a day all the time.
As Jay mentioned, NBA has tipped off. Really look at the injury reports, because we're already seeing a lot of star players, even though we're just in the second day right now, that are questionable. So kind of take a look at the injury reports. A lot of fluctuation in the lines because of that. So
just an awesome start to watch the Rockets.
Oh, yeah.
A game
Double
going to
overtime.
The Warriors found the fountain of youth, and we saw them be able to put up some points.
No
on the
LBJ,
Lakers.
of course, though. But
Doncic with an incredible game. But again, excited the NBA's back, and again, so much more stuff on the board. Check out the props on the NBA. Again, you're looking at 400 plus props available nightly on every NBA game on the board.
So we touched a little bit on baseball and NBA, but let's jump into college football now to start with. Looked at some of the big games from last week. I think you look at that Georgia Tech Duke game. Was a game that was good for our side of the counter, as was UNLV and Boise. There was a huge push as far as tickets go on UNLV, so Boise was a good start for us. The late Georgia cover against Ole Miss, not good for us. Oregon demolishing Rutgers, not good for us. Bama over Tennessee, not good. And then Notre Dame winning by exactly 10. That game had dipped below 10 to 9.5. And we talked about it, that we didn't think Southern Cal would be able to stop the Irish's running game, and that was the case. They just ran through them. And then a late start, the BYU-Utah game, BYU winning outright was good for us. But overall, it was a fairly good schedule, a good weekend for us on the college side of it last weekend with a lot of parity still in college football.
Yeah, and a lot of top teams in the country knocked off. Two of the games you didn't mention. On Friday night, we saw Louisville knock off Miami. A late interception there by Beck that kind of cost them the game.
He had 4 INTs in that game.
Confusion, potentially lower him on your Heisman chart there. And then Arizona State with knocking off the undefeated Texas Tech, another big upset that happened in the evening hour. Again, shuffling that playoff picture, shuffling that top 12 teams, leaving it wide open in the college football playoff race. And again, adds to the intrigue of this week's matchups. And I think we're starting to get to a point as we look at, college week 9, college week 8, where we're into some elimination games in these teams, to where you can see the writing on the wall.
That third loss would be catastrophic at this point
teams
for
that
some
are
of these schools.
Teams that are with one or two losses, that a loss here potentially knocks them out of the playoff race.
Before we jump in, though, to this week's games, let's talk a little last man standing, our college football contest. It is week 8 for last man standing college, and there's only, I believe, 25 guests that are left. So congratulations to you 25. Tremendous job. Cards are out for this week. Take a look at them, but 25 guests left for last man standing.
Said it last week, we're getting that much closer to that $100,000 winner in last man standing. Let's see, what is it? So we're 25 to 12 to 6 to 3, so maybe 4 weeks away from seeing a new $100,000 last man standing winner.
All right, let's dive into this week's games, guys. Number 8, Ole Miss at number 13, Oklahoma. Oklahoma opened up a 4.5-point favorite in this game, now up to 5. The big jump we've seen is the total from 51 to 54.5. Both teams come in at 6-1. Ole Miss comes off their first loss. The total has gone under in 13 of Ole Miss's last 19 games. However, they're just 1-4 against the number their last 5 games on the road. Oklahoma 4-2 against the number their last 6 games. Total has gone under for Oklahoma 5 straight games at home. Some interesting betting trends to look at for this one.
Yeah, and heartbreak last week as an Ole Miss fan. Didn't have high expectations going into Georgia. Obviously, Chambliss making the first career road start. But after the way that game started and the offense was so fantastic for Mississippi, they looked confident. They're up 12 points going into the fourth quarter. And then the play calling and the ground game and Chambliss running the football kind of disappeared. Georgia's able to move the football pretty much with ease in that fourth quarter and sneak out with a 40-34 win. And we haven't seen that Georgia offense able to put up that many points at all this season.
Right.
So it was really a collapse by the Ole Miss defense. And again, I think that's why you're seeing the move to the offense and the points in this week's matchup against Oklahoma. Oklahoma struggled again last week. We saw Mateer come back, but weren't able to put up the points. And then you have this Ole Miss team now off of a road loss. We talked about the back-to-back of what Ole Miss was going to have to do here, go to Georgia, then go to Oklahoma. So I was impressed with the way they played on the road in Georgia. To not come out with the win after the way they looked, heartbreaking. But now you hope that they can travel again. But this is again a wounded dog with their backs up against the wall in Oklahoma. You talk about a game that is a playoff eliminator. I think that you could circle this game up and say the loser of this game, Oklahoma Ole Miss, is most likely out of the playoff race. So that was what's make this such a big game. And I think that Ole Miss did learn some things and take their team with the ability to travel. But let's see if they can do it in back-to-back weeks. I know Kiffin was extremely upset with the way that they blew that game and the way that especially on the defensive side of the football. But Oklahoma is equally upset after their loss and getting another week of Mateer with that hand. They should be coming in firing on all cylinders. This Oklahoma or Ole Miss defense that has had some cracks the last couple weeks.
I think when you look at the schedule this week, Jay, if we look at the last couple of weeks, there's probably been 7 to 10 really marquee games in college football. Not quite the case this week, but the 3 or 4 that are those big games, they are huge games for these schools. Another game we're going to look at here is number 15 Missouri at number 10 Vandy. Both teams are 6-1. Vandy opened 3 in this game and 52.5. Missouri is 9-2 against the number their last 12 games. They've gone over 8 of their last 12 games. Vandy 6-2 against the number their last 8 games. Vandy is 7-1 straight up in their last 8 games. Yet they've gone under 8 of their last 11 games. This is a phenomenal game as well.
And it's a phenomenal game, and Vandy comes off the win over LSU, and you know what that gets them? That gets them college game day, showing up to Nashville for Missouri at Vanderbilt. I guess no one had that on their bingo cards at the beginning of the year, that a college game day would be going to Missouri at Vandy, seeing both of these teams 5-1, ranked, in the top 20. And again, we talk about
when was the last time Vandy?
A playoff elimination game here. Either of these two teams, whoever walks out of here with the loss, could probably kiss their playoff chances goodbye.
I'm going to disagree with you, though. I think because there's so much parity in college football this year, and there's so many teams, we saw so many of the top 25 teams lose last week, I think you're going to get a team or two with 2 losses to still get into the college football playoff.
Well, it's just from the SEC specifically, with what's happening in the ACC and the teams that are going to stay there undefeated, potentially with 1 loss, with the Navies, the South Floridas, potentially able to steal a bid there. I don't know if
there's going to be really interesting.
If there's an extra 1 or 2 seeds for the SEC, with the fact that they're beating themselves up, to have potentially a 3-loss, even a 2-loss team with a bad home loss.
I agree with you. 3-loss, that's not going to happen. But I do think you might see a team or two with 2 losses get into the playoffs. But again,
super impressed with what Vandy's been able to put together. Pravilla, a big win on the road after Missouri lost to Alabama. Go on the road, win at Auburn. Again, these teams they're perennially now SEC juggernauts, finding themselves in the top 20. We'll see where these coaches end up getting offers for, because these are the type of things, when you win at schools like this, those big jobs tend to open up for you.
We've talked about too, really.
One thing there, Missouri has won 5 straight matchups against Vanderbilt. So Missouri, a lot of recent success against Vanderbilt.
Yeah, so we've talked about some really good games this weekend. Here's another one that's phenomenal. Number 3 A&M at number 20 LSU. This game's kind of ping pong back and forth between 2.5 and 3.5. Currently sits at 2.5. A&M 7-0. Lucy 5-2. Lucy's probably already out of the playoff picture. Brian Kelly, he's coaching for you-know-what at this point. It's a big game for them. Some interesting stats here, though. A&M is just 3-9 against the number of their last 12 games. They've gone over 6 of their last 8 games. They're 7-0 straight up, of course, this year. Only 2-12 against the number in their last 14 games against LSU. So something to think about here as they're playing an LSU team that really has their backs up against the wall right now at 5-2.
Yeah, LSU's not been good. We've talked about it kind of ad nauseum. Went to Ole Miss and lost by 5. Lost this past week by 6 or 7 to Vanderbilt. Brian Kelly, Garrett Nussmeier. Nussmeier hasn't been that Heisman Trophy. Oblique injuries. So a lot to talk about with what's going on at LSU. But when we look at it on the Texas A&M side, they've been winning games. They're number 3 in the country. They're the highest ranked SEC team in the country. But still some kind of, we'll call it, holes in their game. They won by 1 point at Notre Dame, where they allowed Notre Dame to score 40 points. Super high scoring game, 41-40 at Notre Dame. At home, they then win a 16-10 game against Auburn. Last week, they go on the road and they allow the Arkansas Razorbacks to score 42 points, and they sneak out of Arkansas with a 45-42 win. So whether it's a high-scoring game, a low-scoring game, Texas A&M is just finding a way. Mike Elko is finding a way with this unit, and this, again, feels like another game where you're going to get an LSU team that it's an evening game down in Death Valley.
One of the tougher places to play.
A place you really don't want to go to at night. And A&M's got to make this trip now again in a back-to-back road week kind of atmosphere. But again, it feels like this A&M team is just going to find a way. They're going to find a way, whether it's a low-scoring game, a high-scoring game, they're going to find a way.
Don't you have to wonder a little bit of what the psyche is with LSU? I mean, really, if you listen to the fan base, and everyone's kind of calling for Brian Kelly right now, that this is it, we're going to make a decision at some point. So it's that circle the wagons kind of approach. This is a game that can even though maybe it doesn't get them in the playoffs, it could be a season-saving win if they can beat an undefeated A&M team.
You don't go to the top SEC schools in the country. You don't go to the Ohio States and Notre Dames to pack your season up after a loss. Brian Kelly's going to have these guys come back. Again, they're at home. They've got a chance to knock off the number 3 team in the country, as well as we talked about them being dead and buried, but you go knock off the number 3 team in the country, and
I still think
the craziness
a
continues.
2-loss team
the
is
craziness
going to get
continues.
in. Could they be the 2-loss team that runs the table, beats A&M, and maybe has an opportunity to sneak in at the end of the year?
Anything can happen. It starts with having to beat Texas A&M this week.
A loss is catastrophic, though. You can forget it with a loss, and that drum beat will even get louder for Brian Kelly. A couple of other games, too, like we talked about, not quite as marquee as what we've seen, but undefeated BYU 7-0 at Iowa State. 5-2. Iowa State is a 3-point favorite in that game, and Houston 6-1 at ASU. We talked about earlier. ASU is a 7-point favorite against Houston in this game. Some of the other better games this weekend as well.
Again, the schedule is loaded. Every game's got a chance for you to win money. Props are available on all these games. Saturday is a heck of a card, and definitely looking forward to it. We also got a bunch of other stuff within the schedule, that you got, whether it's soccer games, golf, power slap, UFC, an absolute loaded weekend on the schedule.
We're going to talk a little pro football now. And, before we get into the slate of games, it was a little shaky last week. I mean, for our side of the counter, kudos to you guys. Very chalky. I think we mentioned earlier our decisions. We were 0-7 early on the games on Sunday morning. You got a lot of overs come in late. You had the Monday night doubleheader where both favorites came in. And with that said, let's look at last man standing before we jump into the games. There are 49 of you guys left in the pro football last man standing. We've seen a dramatic drop over the last 3 weeks. Congratulations with all this uncertainty and all the upsets and all the parity we've seen over the last month in pro football. 49 of you guys are left.
It's crazy, and we hit the, I'll say, the dreaded week 8. And if you play fantasy football, you know why I'm saying the dreaded week 8. A lot of buys this week, having to scramble those lineups.
You have the Lions, guys. You're in big trouble.
Pick up some
big trouble.
Pick up some players, try to fill those lineups. But when I say the dreaded week 8, when you look at the point spreads this week, we have a lot of prohibitive favorites.
7-point favorites, right.
We got 1, 2, 3. We got 7 games where we've got 5 games where a team is about a touchdown favorite. Buffalo a 7-point favorite over Carolina. Eagles a 7.5-point favorite over the Giants. New England a 7-point favorite over Cleveland. Baltimore a 6-point favorite over the Bears. Cincinnati a 7-point favorite over the Jets. The Colts a 14.5-point favorite over the Titans, and Kansas City a 13.5-point favorite over the Commanders. A lot of those are injury driven, but when you talk about a money line week or a teaser week, boy, does this set up to be a week where we're going to need...
Did you have to say that?
Yeah, no, I'm just... This is the week that we're looking at, where this is going to be a big week for teasers and a big week for money line favorites and putting those parlays together. So we're going to be desperate for that money line dog to come in, which didn't happen last week.
Well, it happened on Thursday.
We got the Bengals,
right,
and we got the Colts. Those are the only 2 dogs that ended up winning for the week. The Colts were actually a heavily bet dog, but the Giants' epic collapse at Denver, where they gave up the monster fourth quarter lead, was a dog that we could have desperately used. And the Cardinals were fighting tooth and nail and blew that game. But again, found no real money line dogs outside of the Thursday night game. So again, the books will be desperate for one of these dogs to come in, and it looks like potentially an easy cash on your teasers down to a pick and your money lines. So again, a big schedule, that dreaded week 8 schedule, missing a bunch of games for the bye weeks and a lot of heavy favorites.
So let's start with the Thursday game. Vikings at the Chargers. I think when you look at both these teams, Jay, they're a little bit of a disappointment to me. I know the Vikings have had the injuries, of course, at quarterback, but they're currently in last place in the NFC North. You look at how many games, what did they win, 14 games last year? They're in last place in the NFC North. J.J. McCarthy got hurt early on and he had some struggles. Carson Wentz hasn't looked great. That offense just seems out of sort.
Carson Wentz is the reason why they're not winning football games.
Well, defensively too. I mean, they gave up 3 long touchdowns against the Eagles. That's a game that they could have won. You look at the way that Brown and Smith kind of dominated that Viking secondary. This has been a Viking team that, although you've got Jefferson and Addison and a really good, talented offense, you didn't need to be as dynamic because that defense was so dominated the last couple of years. That hasn't been the case this year. They were torched by their last couple of games on the back end, so they need to get that fixed. The Chargers, on the other hand, they started the season 3-0. They had 3 wins against all 3 opponents in the AFC West, but now sit at 4-2, and it's been the injury bug, losing both running backs, including their sensational rookie running back Hampton. That offensive line missing 3 starters, including Joe Alt. They've really been banged up a lot. The game opened 3. It's now 3.5. Kind of a big game for both teams because you look at the Chargers and they're looking up at the Denver Broncos, who are 5-2. Broncos easily could be 7-0, and the Chiefs are 4-3, same amount of wins as the Chargers have right now, and appear to be getting healthy. And Mahomes is having a great season right now, so I think it's a big game for both teams. But right now, the Chargers are a 3.5-point favorite over the Vikings.
Lot to unpack there with both these teams. Obviously, I think you just have to start with the quarterback position for the Minnesota Vikings. Is it going to be Wentz? Are we going to see somebody else potentially in this game? And McCarthy's not going to be there. And I mentioned that.
No, Wentz is supposed to start.
Wentz is the reason why this team isn't winning football games. I thought it was actually a pretty short number with the Eagles only being a 1.5 to 2 point favorite in Minnesota this past week. I thought the Eagles should have been a little bit higher. And Minnesota, I was wrong. Minnesota, to me, was a little bit the better team on the field. Obviously, they gave up the big plays to Smith and Brown in the passing, but they were able to move the football on the Eagles. They settled for 5 field goals. I think four of those 5 field goals, they were actually inside the 20 and settled for those field goals. So that was a Carson Wentz inability to push the ball in the end zone. He gave up a touchdown all by himself on an interception return that goes for a touchdown. So they've been really, really bad with Wentz at quarterback, and he's the reason they're losing games. Because I do think that offensive line, they need to get the ball more to Jordan Mason and sprinkle a little bit more to Jefferson and Addison, but not let Wentz go lose these games. But on the other side with the Chargers, who are now a road favorite, they've lost to the Giants, they lost to a banged up Commanders team, and then they just got boat raced by the Indianapolis Colts. So there is no momentum.
They're actually at home in this game.
There's no momentum there for the Chargers at all. And so they've got to figure things out. They've got some great receivers.
They just look so different to me than they did the first 3 weeks.
Well,
I know the injuries,
offensive line
injuries. They just look so different on both sides of the ball.
And we talked about Omarion Hampton, Najee Harris. Now we're going to Vidal. So they haven't had any continuity on the offensive line. They haven't any continuity in the backfield. Vidal put up the big game against the Commanders, but again, kind of a disappearing act this week. But to play this game, to like either of these two teams who have not been playing well, it really kind of is an ugly matchup, and to see who's going to come out here. But man, Minnesota, Wentz has got to figure something out, because this is a good football team at the other positions.
And you think about the Vikings, who kind of pushed all their chips in on J.J. McCarthy. Like, you had Sam Darnold and you had Daniel Jones, and you look at the success that they're having right now for the Seahawks and Colts. These could be one of your guys that you could have kind of groomed J.J. McCarthy a little bit longer. Again, they went all in on McCarthy. He had the injury. He's kind of struggled, and Wentz has really struggled. We'll see if the Vikings pay the price for not having one of those 2 veteran guys in. A couple of interesting stats for this game. Vikings have gone over 5 of their last 6 games. They're 12-5 straight up their last 17 games. We alluded to how good they were last year. They're 5-1 against the number their last 6 games against the Chargers. Chargers have gone over 8 of their last 12 games. They've gone over 4 of their last 5 games against Minnesota, and 7 of their last 9 games at home. So maybe you do see a lot of scoring in this game.
I think that Minnesota needs to keep this a low-scoring game. I think they need to see Jordan Mason. And
actually, Aaron Jones is back too. Yeah, so you're going to have both Jones and Mason.
Frazier,
maybe that helps a little bit.
Frazier's too good of a defensive coordinator to not shore things up on that back end. We saw those guys have a great game. I think that they have to do a better job of controlling Ladd McConkey, Keenan Allen, Quentin Johnson. It was Aronze Gadsden, the tight end for the Chargers.
Game, right.
So now you add a 4th receiver to the mix. So there's a lot for the Vikings to figure out on that back end to stop this Charger team.
I know we touched on it a little bit, that with all the buys, maybe it's not quite the marquee schedule in pro football, but there are some games we want to kind of jump in and look at. One game would be the Bills against the Panthers. I think you look at the Bills, they opened up a 8-point favorite against the Panthers. That number's come down to 7.5, so we clearly saw some sharp play on the Panthers in this game. No Brees Young, though. It's going to be Andy Dalton in this game. The Bills come back off their bye week. Anxious to see kind of how they, what their psyche is, how they play in a road game here where they're over a touchdown favorite.
Yeah, and it's going to come down, obviously, the Panthers have been on a little bit of a roll going into New York last week, unable to win that game. No Young, you talked about, but it's been the Rico Dowdle, Chuba Hubbard.
Great.
Chuba
Hubbard's been
show,
phenomenal.
Controlling the clock, not letting that other offense get on the field, doing just enough to keep the games close and with a chance to steal. So that's what they'll be looking to do again here. Expect that running game to lead the charge, try and keep the ball away from Josh Allen and the Bills. And we've talked about it week after week with this Buffalo Bills team. Josh Allen can only do so much. Some of these receivers, some of these tight ends, somebody's got to step up and announce themselves that they're the guy for him to be able to throw the football.
Before he didn't play in their last game, Kincaid had his first over 100-yard receiving day. So curious to see if he'll be back or not. It looks like he's trending to play in this game. But, we talked a little bit about the Chargers, the injuries at running back, the Bills not having that alpha dog wide receiver. Trade deadline is just 2 weeks away. I know we're going to get into that more in the next couple of weeks, but really curious to see how active a lot of these teams are on both sides of the ball to kind of improve. Next game here, really interesting game, and that's the Bears against the Ravens. One team is 4-2, one team is 1-5. If you didn't know and you asked which team was 4-2, you'd be saying the Ravens, and which team was 1-5, you'd be saying the Bears. It's the exact opposite. Bears have won 4 games in a row after losing their first 2, but I'm really concerned about this Raven team. I think you look at the 49ers, and that's going to be my comparison. Niners lose Purdy, Jennings, Pearsall, Ayuk, Kittle, Bosa, Warner, yet they're 5-2. It's circle the wagons, next guy up, we're going to be great. The Colts lost Lamar Jackson. They did lose some guys on defense, Roquan Smith, other injuries as well. But they've been miserable without these guys. They do not look like any semblance of the Baltimore Ravens. All that offense does now is turn the ball over. They're not any good without Lamar. He should be back. But I am concerned a little bit, especially the defensive side of the ball for the Ravens, who have been dismal over the last 4 weeks.
I take a shot at you just with your age. You called them the Colts there.
Oh, did I?
Yeah,
Ravens.
So the Baltimore Colts when you were a young man. Yeah, it's crazy to think that we have the 1-5 Ravens.
I just got carried away because it was the Bears. I was fired up about the Bears.
They're a 6.5 point favorite over the 4-2 Bears. I don't know in the history of the NFL where we say a 1-5 team is a favorite over a 4-2 football team.
But it's with Lamar's coming.
Yeah, obviously the
yeah.
circumstances of why this is happening, and we've seen the Ravens be very, very bad, very, very banged up. They hit their bye week, and the line is telling you that we're going to see a flip of the script of we're going to see the Baltimore Ravens that we expected to see when the season started. I don't know if the Baltimore Ravens, to your point, have the ability to flip the script that quickly, but Lamar Jackson back, a healthy lineup, this Bears defense that has struggled to stop the run. If we can see King Henry run the football and Lamar is healthy and we sprinkle in the game, you can see why they would be
Grady Jarrett is supposed to be
favorite.
back, but that you're right. That defense has been a little bit better of late. You might get Austin Booker back and Grady Jarrett in this game, which will help that defense. But can they stop King Henry?
And we talked about in the college segment, wounded dogs, teams with their backs up against the wall. If the Baltimore Ravens don't come out of this bye week with the expectation that they've basically got to run the table, and they got the gift last week of watching the Steelers lose to the Bengals, so the division door is got a little creak in it to allow them.
And they still play the Ravens or the Steelers twice.
The door is open, the window is open for the Ravens to find a path to get to the playoffs, and it starts this week. So they've got their backs up against the wall. There's no opportunity for them to lose games moving forward, and I think that's where the line is where it is, and we'll see if the Ravens will come and back that up with their attitude on the field.
So just a couple of interesting betting trends for this one, Jay. Bears 4-1 against a number of their last 5 games. As we've discussed, they've won 4 games in a row, 4-1 straight up their last 5. Or they're just 3-7 against a number of their last 10 games against Baltimore. Dating back to last year, just 3-10 straight up their last 13 games on the road. Baltimore really, as we talked about, struggling 1-6 against a number of their last 7 games. They've gone over 6 of their last 7 games, but they've gone under 5 of the last 7 times they've played the Bears. So interesting trends there, but a lot of this is skewed a bit because the Ravens have been without Lamar Jackson over the last month or so. The next game, which I think is probably the best game on the schedule right now, outside of maybe the Sunday night game, and that's the Dallas Cowboys against the Denver Broncos. Broncos opened up a 3-point favorite in this game. It's crept up to 3.5. They're 5-2, and it was an ugly win against the Jets in London. They had to have that big come-from-behind win against the Giants last week. But they are 2 field goals away that their opposition's kicked with no time on the clock from being 7-0. They lead the league in sacks. They're playing a very dynamic Cowboy offense with CeeDee Lamb back. But it's a fun Bronco team right now, and it seems like Bo Nix. I was dating myself again. Bo Nix is starting to play what we expected him to play. Still has a little bit of the turnover problem, but he played really well in that fourth quarter against the Giants, and they are a 3.5 point favorite here against the Dallas Cowboys.
I agree with you 1,000%. This is the game that I'm most interested in watching, just because of the matchups and the way these teams have been playing. You talked about Denver and their struggles, struggled against both New York teams. We won't go in depth into how the Giants gifted them the
we
game.
Will not.
Nor will we go in depth on how I was playing against Bo Nix in fantasy this week. He had 6 points at the end.
He was my quarterback
at the end of the third quarter, and puts up 2 passing touchdowns and 2 rushing touchdowns in the fourth quarter to seal my fantasy
and 2-point conversions.
My fantasy fate for the week. But maybe that's the jolt that this Denver offense needed, was that fourth quarter to just gain that confidence, because they are getting a Dallas defense that is coming in here that hasn't been very good, and got good this week, but only because Jalen Daniels went out of the game for the Commanders. So the Cowboys are still going to have to win this game on the offensive side of the football. Dak Prescott has been nothing short of absolutely amazing. Javonte Williams has been good. George Pickens has been absolutely unbelievable. And now we get CeeDee Lamb and Ferguson into this as well. I mean, this offense is really, really, really good. And the Giants were able to put up points and move the football. So you got to be a little bit fearful of what we thought was this absolutely great Denver defense, giving Dak Prescott time. Bo Nix is going to have to go up and down the field. This could be another game that we're watching, a 40-40 type game with what these teams are going to have to do to go up and down the field on each other. So very, very exciting. But I think that Denver may have found something in that fourth quarter, and the confidence that they need to move forward.
It was the up-tempo offense, I think. We kind of talked about that maybe they need that a little bit. And not to make excuses, but you look at other teams, and again, this is stuff that we talk about all the time. Those teams coming back from London, if you went back, say, 3, 4, 5 years ago, they always had a bye when they came back. That's not the case anymore. It is the team or the organization's decision. Do you want that bye, or do you want it at a different time? And we've seen some of these teams who have come back without that bye really struggle offensively, and that was the Broncos for 3 quarters.
And the Jets with the other team off the bye, and obviously they lost this week. And we get the gift of not having to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning this week for a London game. I know we do have some 2 internationals later in the season, but it was a good stretch there with the 4 weeks with the early morning games. But obviously we talked about the bye weeks this week, so we don't have a London game.
Some interesting trends too. Dallas has gone over 5 of their last 6 games. They're just 1-4 against the number their last 5 games against Denver. They're 0-7, however, straight up their last 7 games against the Broncos. Broncos, again, although their record is good, they're only 2-6 against the number. They've gone under 4 of their last 5 games, yet they've gone over 7 of their last 9 games against the Cowboys. So as Jay and I said, we expect a lot of scoring in this one as well.
I think just as I'm sitting here today, I think we got to go in the back and we got to come up with a prop on will Aubrey kick a 60-yard field goal in this game. This guy's been
I actually think will he kick a 70-yard field goal in this game because of the altitude in Denver.
He has been absolutely unbelievable, amazing. He lines up to kick from just about anywhere. It's 3 points for the Cowboys.
It will be really interesting.
In that mile high between him and Lutz, I think we could have some extra yardage added to the field goals this week, and I think it would be an interesting prop to put up.
So the next game, which I also categorize as one of the more intriguing games of the week, and that is the Green Bay Packers on Sunday Night Football at the Pittsburgh Steelers and Aaron Rodgers. It just sounds weird that Aaron Rodgers is playing the Green Bay Packers. He didn't play the Packers when he was a Jet last year, but he's playing this week against the Green Bay Packers. It just it's hard to say that he's the quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers right now. You look at the Packers, they're 4-1-1. You look at the Steelers, they're 4-2. This is a really interesting matchup as the Packers come in as a road favorite on Sunday Night Football against Aaron Rodgers.
Well, it was a huge disappointing week for Steelers fans as they lost to Cincinnati last week. Watched Joe Flacco go to Chase. I think it was 23 targets to Chase. He has the absolute monster game. They were unable to stop that connection. Thought Chase Brown gets sprinkled in there. Bengals able to steal a game. Rodgers had those connections. We saw Freiermuth finally find Freiermuth on the big catch. Obviously continues to go to Metcalf. But again, just the
Calvin Austin might be back in this game. It gives him another weapon.
That Packer, Rodgers going back up against the Packers, the storyline for Sunday Night Football. But for me, this game, again, I'm still not sold on the Pittsburgh Steelers as a top team in the National Football League. The win-loss record gets it there for you.
You know what my concerning part about the Steelers is their defense. They've always been under Tomlin, that team that with that pass rush of Hayward and Watt, they were so dominant and so good. They've just been exploited on a number of games this year, and that's my struggle. I know that they still need one complimentary piece at wideout to help Metcalf. Rodgers hasn't been great, but he's been serviceable. But that defense is not your prototypical Steeler defense. And as we alluded to earlier, they still have 2 games against the Ravens. So if they stub their toe here, it really does open the door for the Ravens if the Ravens win on Sunday.
Yeah, and the Green Bay Packers, the Chicago White Sox in the 80s used to use the term winning ugly. That to me is the 2 words that describe the Green Bay Packers. You never know what you're going to get every week, other than they're going to play a tight ball. Since week 1 against the Lions, they're going to play a tight ball game that's going to come down to the end. We saw the tie against the Lions, the loss to the Browns, really struggled against the Arizona Cardinals this week. Josh Jacobs has been absolutely fantastic. He's been punching the ball into the end zone. With Jordan Love and this set of receivers, it's just not there yet. Whether it's Kraft at tight end, Dobbs, Watson, Golden, they just haven't been able
Watson
to put
might be back. I think that
week.
really helps a lot. He is their kind of deep threat, their alpha male as far as a wideout goes. But you're right. It seems like the other guys are all the same.
Inconsistencies of Love, I just don't know what it is, and I feel like it's almost the same on that Steelers side of just what are you going to get week to week, and so it makes it a really hard game to handicap, to kind of dissolve of how the week is going to go down. But again, I think the Packers, you're going to always want to go back to it. They want to run Jacobs, a lot of Jacobs, keep the Steelers off the field, and let's see if Josh Jacobs can dominate this game.
Just a couple of betting trends for this one too. Green Bay 1-4 against the number this year, their last 5 games. They're 4-2 against the number the last 6 times they've played Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh 4-2, as we mentioned earlier, the last 6 games. They've gone over Pittsburgh 5 of the last 6 times they've played Green Bay. And going back to last year, their last 9 games, they are 7-2 at home against the number. So a much better team, and they're catching points here against the Packers. Yeah. Now we're going to look at the Monday night game. Unfortunately, with all the injuries to the Commanders, with Jaden Daniels and Debo and McLaren and Noah Brown, they're just a banged up bunch. We've seen this number go all the way up now to I think 12.5, so a dramatic change in the line against a red hot Chief team. And if you look right now of who maybe the MVP candidate is, I think it's Patrick Mahomes. We all talked about Josh Allen coming into the year, but he's found his wideouts. He's looked poised. That team just looks like they're on a mission, even though the record doesn't reflect that right now at 4-3. But adding Rice and a healthy Worthy, I think you look at that offense, they are pretty dynamic, and they're a huge favorite against the Commanders. But it's really due to all the injuries in the skill position side for Washington.
Yeah, the Commanders, it's, Jaden Daniels, what an incredible rookie season, and the injuries have taken their toll this year. He's missed a lot of games, as well as we talked about the connection to Terry McLaurin, who kind of had the holdout through camp, now has been injured. They just haven't, the Commanders just haven't been the Commanders that they were last year,
right.
That team that was able to shock us in the playoffs. That's why you see this game's actually gone up to 13. And the reason for that is you talked about what this Chiefs are now going through. They absolutely obliterated the Raiders this week, embarrassed the Raiders. I think the Raiders had 3 first downs and
here, put in this perspective,
97 total yards of offense.
The Chiefs had 30 first downs against the Raiders. The Raiders had 30 offensive plays. 30, that's it. They had under 200 yards and only 3 first downs. They basically went out 3 and out every single possession against this Chiefs defense. And we've talked about it for 2 or 3 years now. It's not the Chiefs offense that's been dynamic the last couple of years. It's been their defense. Now you add a hot Patrick Mahomes with young wideouts in Worthy and Rice and even Hollywood Brown playing well, and of course Kelsey playing well. They're scary right now, although they're only 4-3.
Yeah, those early losses have now put the chip on their shoulder to come back and win these games. Denver keeping winning is going to keep them motivated. But they want to try and get back to that number 1 seed. They're hoping that things can fall right and they can find a way to get that bye. But you talk about adding Worthy back into this lineup. You talk about adding Rice back into this lineup, sprinkled in with Brown and Schuster and Pacheco, and check the status on Hunt for this game. But the Chiefs are looking like the Chiefs of 5 or 6 years ago, and the creativity of this offense, the way that they know the game and they play the little tweaks and gives and plays that they're able to give. And again, that's why you see them such a big favorite here. But again, the Commanders really banged up, going into a just an unfriendly environment.
They may have
with Mariota without tools in the
They
shed.
may have some of the offensive guys back, but Mariota, it's going to be an uphill battle against Spags and this Chiefs defense. Just a couple of betting trends to look at for this one too. Washington this year 2-4 against the number, 10-5 straight up their last 15 games, but 0-8 against the number the last 8 times they played Kansas City. So just something to think about with this game. So guys, it's an exciting schedule this week. College, pro, NBA's tipped off. We know that the Knights have dropped the puck. A lot of big games coming up this week. Just a fun sports schedule, really busy time for us. And it's such a great time to get signed up for STN Sports. As Jay's alluded to earlier, it's a no-worry wager. It's the bonus. There's so many cool things going on right now. It really does bring the sportsbook to you.
Power Slap on Friday, UFC on Saturday. Check out those Power Slap MMA cards.
So a lot of good stuff going on. So for Jason, I'm Chucky for the Sports Betting Podcast Bookends, powered by STN Sports as always. Good luck, and we'll see you guys next week here at Red Rock.